Might as well jump. Go ahead and jump. Go ahead and jump.
Well, as many of you will know, that last night was horrible news if you're a lover of this type of music, with the death from mouth cancer at the age of just 65 of Edward Van Halen, co-founder with his brother Alex Van Halen of the legendary, spanning 5 decades basically, of Van Halen, one of the greatest bands ever. And it's freaked me out. And I was speaking to Phil about this. I know it's not Phil's cup of tea at all, and it is right in the very center of what I absolutely love. Hence my shirt, which you've often seen me wear, which says "Destroy the Silence," which they do, and they did. And although this is a mental health show, I will bring it back on course in just a sec. Music, and I don't know about you, and this is where we're going to go with the conversation today, but music has really helped me get me through this god-awful, bloody, terrible year that we're all experiencing. And what has freaked me out, and I'm going to share this because it's really making me feel a bit peculiar, is that back in sort of January, 40 years too late, 40 years, sort of December, January, I really got heavily into the Canadian band Rush and discovered them. I know they've been going for 40 years. They were huge, and somehow they'd gone off my radar. And I became obsessed with Rush, in particular, being a sort of very mediocre drummer myself, absolutely was totally obsessed with Neil Peart, their drummer. And Neil, in January, at the age of 67, died of brain cancer. It was a huge loss to the world of rock and roll. An amazing man, a brilliant writer, a thinker, an extraordinary man. And then I watched all the videos, I watched all the documentaries, I watched all the interviews. I went crazy about Rush, really delved in. And I've done the same now over the last few weeks, which is why I'm being freaked out, with Van Halen, a band that I'd loved, but I'd kind of put on the back burner. And then I became obsessed with Van Halen, especially with David Lee Roth and all the rest of it, and the huge battles between Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth. And I can go on about that for hours, but I won't. And then Van Halen came back. They reformed in 2015, went back on tour, and Eddie Van Halen looked fantastic. He looked so well. And I thought, what a great man. And then out of the blue yesterday, because I get the American news feeds, because I'm more interested in them than the British news feeds, to be honest, came the news that Eddie Van Halen had died of mouth cancer at the age of just 65. And one thing I never do, and Phil's the same, I never jump on the grief train. I can't bear that, the grief pity party, because it's bullshit. I'd never met Eddie Van Halen. I was never likely to. I was just a huge fan. And of course, it makes you feel horribly mortal. He was 65. He was a very, very heavy smoker. But the other thing, because he'd had mouth cancer problems before and had part of his tongue removed years ago, was that he always, when he was playing, kept the metal pick. And he always kept metal picks in his mouth. So if he dropped the pick, he could just pick it up and keep on playing. And there's a theory, well, one of his theories was that the metal affected his mouth as well. Didn't help that he was a very heavy smoker. Anyway, that was our little tribute to Eddie Van Halen, an absolute rock icon, along with Hendrix and Alex Lifeson, reinvented the electric guitar as far as I'm concerned. For those of you who think, well, I'm not interested in heavy metal, I'm not interested in rock, if you liked Michael Jackson and you liked his legendary song Beat It, all of that guitar work was Eddie Van Halen. And there's a wonderful, wonderful story that was on some of the social medias that I saw, was that Eddie Van Halen came in and he said to Quincy Jones, who was producing the album, the Michael Jackson album, he said, "What do you want me to do?" Quincy says, "Whatever you want." He says, "Do I have free reign?" He went, "Totally." So Quincy Jones came out, went away, came back and said, "Right, cut this, move that." It completely, Eddie Van Halen totally rearranged the song. And if you love Michael Jackson and Beat It, that might be your introduction to Edward Van Halen. My biggest point is this. My biggest point by the Timmy, not today, read the room. My biggest point today is, what does music mean to you? Has music and the arts helped you get through 2020? Now, this Timmy, who's a terrific comedian, I know that he's very upset. His husband, David, is a company manager of some of the hugest shows in the West End. They're climbing the walls, these guys. Jeff Stevenson's just come on. Absolutely, Russ, if only someone would tell Rishi and Company. Well, Jeff's one of the country's leading stand-up comics. He's a legend in the industry. He's hugely respected. Just made a film, which I loved, by the way. Paul Claridge. Hi, everyone. Van Halen gone. Well, Eddie Van Halen. Alex still with us. And today, Johnny Nash. Johnny Nash was 80. Sad day. Yeah. Chrissy Holt, existentialism. Are either of you an existentialist? I've never understood what that meant. Genuinely, I really don't know what it means. Barry J. Allen, big loss. Francine, hi to you. And then Paul Andrews, EVH, Eddie Van Halen, of course. Now, what has it meant to you? Has music, has the arts, has comedy got you through? Has television, has movies got you through? And how do you feel? Because I know that many of you are in the arts. How do you feel about the fact, until it was retracted yesterday, it was retracted, but there was a tweet saying, hey, everybody in the arts, hey, Jeff Stevenson, hey, Timmy Alexis Carrington Ward, hey, Cassidy Jansen, go and retrain as something else. What? What are you going to retrain as? That's what you do. That's what artists do. They perform in the arts. What the hell am I or anybody else? All right, I got other things to do, but Jesus, what a callous bloody thing to say. How do you feel about it? If you want to phone in, the numbers scrolling across 0203 290 4411. You get straight through to Phil. I can only apologize. And Phil will probably put you on air. Phil, you're a little bit down in the dumps today, aren't you? You're a bit down in the dumps. Be honest. Share it.
I am down in the dumps, but okay. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, everyone. I'm so sorry. It's as much as I like the song. I like the song "Jump." I respect Eddie's work enormously. I have to confess that it's not the reason why I'm down, and obviously, I'm very, very sorry for him and in particular his family that he leaves behind. But for me, the main reason that I'm downstate is it's once in a blue moon. I feel as though sort of it sounds really daft, but it's almost as if sort of the universe is conspiring against me. Load of bunkum. Of course it's not, but sometimes you get that feeling.
Yeah.
For me, today and yesterday, it's actually this week in general, but let's go with yesterday and today in particular, is just sort of making me feel a little bit more like that. In a nutshell, I won't bore you with some quite personal situations going on, but let's just say that
by the way, I just want to stress, because Phil and I had a very long conversation this morning, and Phil's fine. He is not ill, and his family's not ill. It's not illness.
Sorry, I should have stressed that. I'm sorry.
Otherwise, everyone starts panicking.
What I told you and forgot I didn't tell everyone else. But anyway, no. I was going to say that it's absolutely not health, thank goodness. In the grand scheme of things, I would argue it's actually quite trivial, but it is all important all the same. And it's actually to do, would you believe, with property, getting on the old property ladder. Now, I've probably had this conversation with you before. I think Russ actually reminded me, we mentioned it on Monday, I think, which is actually extraordinary because I'd forgotten that I'd even spoken about it on Monday.
Every day's the same. It's like Groundhog Day. What the hell? I wake up. It's irrelevant what day it is.
Yeah. No, what happened is that this week has been a bit of an eye-opener because even though I already knew that as a young professional desperately trying to make his way onto the property ladder at the age of 34, that unfortunately, yet again, setback after setback continues. And it's sort of slowly but surely making me realize that it's not a complete pipe dream. It's considerably more graspable now than it was even about a year ago. But the point is, it is the most draining battle. As in, I can't tell you how much now one has to really fight to get virtually nothing. As in, what I'm looking at now in terms of potential property that I might be able to say is within my budget. And actually, let's be really clear about something. Okay, I'm going to go off. I don't want this to be a total rant, but I just need to give a bit of context. What one can afford and what is achievable are actually two very different things in this day and age, because some people might not realize now, if you're not a first-time applicant for mortgage, actually it's a very different game now. And the maximum amount that anyone will be lent is 4 or 5 times, possibly 5 times, but normally 4 times the salary. Now, what does that mean? Well, 4 or 5 times the salary sounds very good, because considering that sort of in years gone by, some people only have to double or triple their salary and they'd bought a house or a property. So that was great. And especially as wages have obviously sort of risen as well over the years. They've not risen obviously anywhere near the same rate as property has, but 4 or 5 times sounds quite reasonable. However, what you actually need to consider is what 4 or 5 times the average salary is. Let's say the average salary is around 30, maybe I would imagine it's nearer £30,000, £35,000. Okay.
Call it 30 for just sake of easy maths.
Fine. So 4 or 5 times 30. Well, I'm not a brilliant mathematician, but you are looking at 120 to 150,000 pounds. And you've got to tell me what that gets you in this day and age. And the answer is
shoebox from Lillian Skinner.
But it's worse. It gets you a shoebox in the middle of nowhere. That's the problem. If you are London bound, or even sort of the outskirts of London, so Hertfordshire, Essex, Sussex, that kind of location, it really gets you very little in the grand scheme of things. And I suppose, having had a conversation with a highly recommended mortgage broker on Monday, won't bore you with the details of the conversation.
Oh, thank God.
His word, his wording to me was relatively simple, yet quite poignant. He said, "It's ridiculous how someone in your position can't get more help." So what that told me is, number one, I'm not in a bad position, but number two, there's still no help. It's not going to happen necessarily.
Yeah, it's a complete catch-22, and it's a nonsense how anybody is supposed to get on the property ladder now. I don't know. It doesn't help, but that is why that is a long look at the property market by Mr. Philip Dave of Hertfordshire. But that is why he's down in the dumps, and I get it. Now let's try and. But the thing about MRS, thing about Men's Radio, is we always try to just be absolutely straightforward and honest, and we don't do the "Hey everybody," because I think that's really, one, I think it's rubbish, and two, it's something I've never liked in broadcasting since I started in 1984, probably before Phil was born. Julia Hersey, let's just mop up.
2 years before I was born.
You were born. That always cracks me up. I was already the flying eye, and Linda and Mrs. Dave just had their baby boy.
That might be one of the same.
Weird. Isn't that weird? Right, Julia Hersey. Hi, Julia. Change in weather doesn't help. We're talking about moods and everything like that. Change in weather doesn't help. We've had such a good run of great weather. The thought of a long winter, not great under the circumstances. I'm dreading. I'll be absolutely frank with you, Julia, and everybody else. I am freaking dreading it. Dreading winter. Because of mindset. Because, at least I've been able to step out on the terrace and go for lovely walks and everything like that. And when it's pouring with rain, and even Ebony takes one look and says, "Sod that for a game of soldiers, I'm going back to bed." It doesn't help. Shoshana Yosef, hi there. Can we have a virtual pity party, please? We could do if everybody wanted it, but I don't think that's what we want to do. I don't want to do a pity party.
Look, and I'm sorry, I promise you, I don't mean to turn it into, quote, a virtual pity party.
No, that came before you started talking about the property market.
Yeah, but just to point out that sort of in the interest of transparency, there is 0 point in Russ and I coming on this show each and every other day to say to you, how are you feeling? How are you coping? Talk to us, open up. And we don't do it ourselves. So I'm just being perfectly honest. I could have very easily kept that to myself. I mean, I told Russ because, to be honest, I bore him with most things. But if I was going to say that, I could have very easily kept that to myself and just carried on with the conversation, which I knew was more about arts and entertainment today and sort of how it makes us feel being deprived of it. But no, I'm quite pleased to actually say it out loud, because it does hack me off. It really, really hacks me off.
Because everybody, it's madness. It's absolute madness. Because surely, if you've got a flat worth X, they're only going to lend you Y. If everything goes wrong, they've got the flat.
Yeah. And might I suggest as well, RK, that it's nothing actually per se to do with, well, it's not fair. They've got one and I want one. It's not actually even about that. I'm putting myself first here. And I've got to be realistic. People of my generation are really don't have a grip on this pensions situation. Okay. The truth is that many of us haven't started saving for pensions when we really should have done probably about 10 years ago. Now, if we don't have pensions saved up, and then we end up being an entire generation that don't even own their own property, what do you think is going to happen? We're never going to be able to retire. Never going to be able to retire because we won't have any income from anywhere.
And I'm going to say that I never bothered with pensions because, one, I wanted to live for the moment. And when you're in your 30s and even your 40s, you think tomorrow's never going to come. And then you wake up one morning and shit, tomorrow's come. And where's the pension? Because it seems like at the time, it seems ridiculous. You want to buy cars, you want to go on holidays, you want to go rest, you want to do all the things because you're a young rooster-dooster, right? And you want to do all that stuff. And the thought of being of retirement age is like, well, that's 1,000 years away. And that 1,000 years goes like that. If you haven't started saving, boy, save. Dave Sleet, we want to thank Dave Sleet enormously from ANA. Thank you so much. Share and share alike, he says. He's talking about, I presume he's talking about Phil and myself, sharing, and which is a perfect opportunity. The hundreds of you who have voted for us in this award run by ANA, which is a highly respected psychological organization. Thank you. I know hundreds of you. I have made the point to try and personally thank all the hundreds of you one by one individually. It's the very least I could do. So thank you so much. I am and Phil are enormously grateful. It means one hell of a lot to us. Now, what have we got? Chrissy Holt. We've got called sad syndrome. At least we have sun most winter. Oh, because you're in Spain. Yeah, you might do. We won't have it in London. At the Grand Ole Opry. Yeehaw! The Grand Ole Opry, which is in somewhere down south, not Eastbourne, I mean in America, has opened up with how many people have got in it? 500 people. This is a huge barn of a place. It's blimmin' enormous. It's reopened with 500 people in the audience, social distancing and wearing masks. Of course. Why not? Taken from Skinner's Journey, an old Viking poem. Chrissy, what's going on with you today? The length of my life and the day of my death were fated long ago. Oh, that's existentialism.
Good Lord.
You know, if you think that everything's mapped out for you, why bother to get out of bed? It really doesn't matter what the hell you do, does it? It's all sorted. So it's irrelevant what you actually think as a human being. I think we all have free will, but there we go.
Steve Harris says, read Liam Halligan's book, Home Truths. I'm guessing that's sort of about property of some description. Can I make it clear as well, actually? You know what's really, this is why this is so juxtaposed the way I feel. And what really irritates me about this is I know on paper, actually, I'm in a very good position compared to an awful lot of others that I know. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. On paper, I am.
I get that.
But in practice, it is damn near impossible. And this is what's so frustrating. But what's ridiculous about the whole thing, to put all of that to one side, is it's how it makes me feel. And this is what really irritates me, because actually, even though I know the salary that I'm on at the moment, and never mind what that is, but the salary I'm on at the moment is actually more than I was thinking I would achieve at my age. So I'm happy enough with that. Okay. So that's good news. Number two is I have been a stringent saver for as long as I care to remember.
Yes.
Actually,
I'm looking at the word careful here.
Russ can vouch for the truth of that. I don't spend money very often, but I am such a stringent saver. And the fact that someone like me, who is so hell-bent on keeping the pennies safe, and even then, all of that, on paper, good position, when all of it adds up to nothing.
Go out and buy an Aston Martin and enjoy it.
Yeah, but I know, but all of this adding up makes me feel like I've somehow failed at the game of life. And
you haven't. You haven't. The odds are stacked. It's like, Phil, it's like going into a casino in Vegas. You're never going to beat the house. Occasionally, somebody will beat the house, but it's very, very rare. The odds are completely stacked against you. It's not you, Schnorrer. Totally. You've no idea. Yeah, you've no idea.
Can I just say to anyone who doesn't speak Yiddish, okay, a Schnorrer is somebody who wants everything for nothing. Okay, they're very, very,
They're just mean. They're
very
just mean.
yeah, very mean.
They're mean, and they're always they're not generous of heart or spirit.
So, thank you very much, Shoshana. I have to confess that I prefer the term frugal, but yes, you could also go with Schnorrer.
No, you're not, because you're generous. The difference is you're very generous hearted. I mean, Phil is, for all the ribbing we do to each other, he's very generous hearted. Not say, he doesn't splash out, but he's generous hearted. Now, this is an important point. Phil, I'll read this because it's about you. Phil, this is from Paul Andrews. Apologies certainly aren't needed. Talk about anything that's on your mind. It's the nature of the station and the show, surely. Absolutely. It's at the very root of everything that we do here. Let's go across to Croydon. Somebody has to. You may be up a ladder. We don't know. We don't know. We never know with Paul.
Prop yourself up. Hang on. Oh, good God. Hang on. Oh, here we are. Hello. Behind here.
No, I can't see. Where you gone? It's like the Berlin Wall suddenly come back. What the hell? Oh, there we go. Right. Are you read what Paul I'm up a ladder Claridge has to do?
Okay, Paul Claridge very kindly says he always types very long messages, which is very good of him because it means he's really interested in the show. So it's very good. Thank you very much. Paul says, I usually look forward to winter, but this time I'm not so sure. I'm lucky enough to have a job, even though the pay isn't that great. The employers are
nicely edited there, Philip.
The employers aren't so good either. And don't make my job easy to you, Paul. Not so good either, and the conditions I face each day aren't the best. Oh, finally, now that's radio friendly. Thank you.
Yes.
It's a job. Many of my friends are musicians, actors, and performers. They are on their knees financially and emotionally. What Rishi told them to do went down like a lead balloon. Most of them have other skills, but the jobs they would do in their downtime, waiting, waitressing, just aren't there anymore.
They're not. Let's pick that up. I want to pick that up with what Timmy said. Timmy Alexis Carrington Ward. I said it. Silly bitch. He said this. To be fair, it wasn't actually said like that. And Timmy's Timmy's correct. He actually said he couldn't promise everyone their jobs back. And there's your dad. And for those, he's trying to help with retraining then. Still insulting, but not telling everyone to retrain. It's interesting because that tweet had to be changed during the course of yesterday, and various tweets were going backwards and forwards as parts of it were retracted, and they were saying that's not what was said, etc. Because a lot of people jumped on it. And of course, you know what social media is like. Rather than actually go to the source and bother to read what was said, it's much better to listen to Doreen, the hairdresser from Stoke-on-Trent, who is a medical expert, political expert, flu expert, everything expert, although she works in a tiny shop doing tints and perms. It's much better to read her social media. Then you really know what's going on, rather than going actually to the source material, which of course would involve just a little bit of work. And we don't want any of that on social media.
Don't want any work.
Ken
Elm. I take it you do know. Oh, hang on, Ken Elm. No. I'm not throwing accusations. Come on, man. For heaven's sakes. I don't know this. How do you know? Hang on.
What's he said? We love Ken Elm.
Right, Ken Elm. I haven't got any proof of this, so I hope you're not getting us into trouble. I take it you do know that ITV News deleted their original story about musicians having to train for new careers and apologized for their reporting, quote, error. They admitted the Chancellor had been speaking of employment in general and not musicians in particular. I did not know this. I hope that's the case.
I'm pretty sure that, I think Ken Elm's correct. I think that's pretty sure. As I was saying, there were retractions all over the place.
Can I just stress, Ken Elm, it's nothing against you per se. I'm always twitchy because sadly that's what 8 years at the BBC does to you. You just check everything before you read it. So I just didn't check that myself, and that's why I'm twitchy. I'm perfectly convinced you're right, so I'm sorry.
No, I think he is right, because as I said, there was a lot of retractions going on there, and Timmy's backing up what Ken Elm has said there, Ramsey Y. Musalam. Hi, Ramsey. My nephew, oh, this is going to hack you off. Here you go. My nephew recently bought his home with his partner and works in the film industry. Blimey. They are so worried about all the movies being put back to next year by the big studios, etc. Top Gun must have, the new Top Gun. Well, I was watching the trailers, which were on all over YouTube last year. So God knows when that's coming out. James Bond has been put back to, I think I'll be dead by the time this film comes out. So many will leave their jobs at cinemas. It looks like Cineworld are heavily considering shutting all the cinemas. And
No, they are. They've announced
they're definitely doing it. Oh,
they're definitely going to temporarily close their US and America sites from tomorrow. So, but they do say, it's really important to stress this, they are not going under. They are closing the doors so that they can minimize costs until they ride the storm, which is actually a very clever way of dealing with this.
I think that's quite right. I think that's quite right, because of all the things that you can get round, going to the cinema it is what I know you're going to say, oh, I don't get the big screen experience and the wonderful sound and all this. But you can watch everything at home. It's not a big thing not to go to the cinema.
But if you do look at it like this, however sad it is that Cineworld has felt the need to do this, business-wise, it's a very clever strategy. Because if they were to sadly lay off some staff, which they are more than likely going to have to do, they will save themselves a fortune that way. They have to keep security and employment probably just to maintain the buildings. But cleaning will go from daily probably to weekly or possibly even monthly, because it won't be so essential anymore. They won't have to buy stocks of food that doesn't get eaten. It's actually a very, very clever strategy that they've adopted. And it's probably going to see their survival where other cinema chains might not if they're not careful. So even though I recognize it comes across as quite sad and shock horror, the news in this country has portrayed it as a disaster. If you actually look at it, I think they're being very clever.
Ramsey says, apparently in Glasgow, so Cineworld staff were encouraged to buy the pick and mix before being laid off.
Whoops.
Really? How do you know that, Ramsey? Let us know. Paul Claridge, ladder news, ladder update.
You're going off in the world.
He should have rung into the show. Move on. I know I'm no longer up a ladder, but earlier this morning I was up a ladder. What's the matter? Repairing our TV aerial. Have you never heard what happened to Rod Hull, you idiot? What are you doing? You are the Rod Hull of Croydon now. Not to mention the bloke who fell off the roof in the Archers.
Can I just say that Paul Claridge, repairing aerials, you're sending out all the wrong signals. Thank you.
Wacka.
And I've got one more. I can't even get on the property ladder, and he's talking about going several steps up the ladder. Thank you. There we go. Chris Knoll, haven't been to the cinema since 1966. Good Lord.
Jesus. Really?
You do know they don't
like films? Do you not like films, Chrissy? I mean, it's a serious question. Do you not like movies? I love movies, but I'm happy to watch them at home. Put my headset on, got the proper stereo sound. I mean, because it's all in my headset. It's great. Love it.
I'm quite happy watching films from the comfort of my own home. I don't need to spend a fortune on popcorn.
No, I tell you what drives me mad. And this creeped into the theatre. Hello, Mr. Dave.
He can't hear you.
Mr. I'm being polite.
He'll wave. There you go.
There he is. He's in good nick, your dad, I must say. I still want to get this new. Bad. I want to get this new contest going. What's in Phil Dave's dad's cupboard?
Do we want to get
every day? I think every day there should be. This is it, Phil. Every day, I want a mystery item from your home that has no bearing on the room or the cupboard. That would be genius.
Okay,
that would be great. Everyone can guess.
We can reveal the cupboard today if you want. I don't mind too much. I warn you, it's probably not the tidiest, but, it's all right.
Let's just see what Timmy has to say. I can't believe Rod. You better read this. I'll never get through it. Go on.
Right. I can't believe Rod Hull fell off the roof, especially when he had a big West End come back set up.
Did he really?
Set
Fiddler
up.
On the roof. Oh, Jesus.
Isn't it amazing? I put the emphasis in totally the wrong place because I knew it came from Timmy. I just assumed it was lewd, especially when he had a big West comeback set up. There you go. Don't know why I bothered. It's no wonder you didn't want to read it out.
Timmy is shameless. He doesn't give a monkey's. Going for the Pringles again. Julia Hersey, what's in the cupboard? Julia Hersey's guess, it's Pringles.
Right, are we doing this? Am I revealing what's in the cupboard, or is it too early?
Yes. No. It's not too early. We want to see today because we're all fascinated. What the hell's in this cupboard? This is like tuck here. Look at this. It's like a branch of staples.
Let's
What the
talk you
hell's
through.
going on in there? There's
Let's
like
talk you through.
staples.
In
like
shelf
right-
one.
You're like Ryman's.
Yeah, shelf one. We have a set of dumbbells.
Which you haven't touched ever since they arrived.
Well, they're not mine, they're my dad's.
Oh,
Shelf,
that's why it's in good shape.
we have some photo albums that wouldn't fit in the cupboard that's actually designated for photos because we've got too many of the blooming things. So
Cupboard for photos. What kind of house is this?
Yeah, the
What
next-
kind of person lives in a house like this?
this is very intrusive. Hang on.
God damn. They're horribly organized. I bet there's people all over the world looking at that going, oh, crap.
It's
I bet it's in my cupboards.
So in the hang on, I've closed my other doors again.
They are just so organized in the Dave household.
Right. God, you should only know the truth behind that statement anyway. Right. Shelf two. So okay, we've got photo albums that are all sort of spilling over from the actual photo cupboard.
Cupboard.
Shelf three, we have spare weights for the dumbbells in case you want to change the amount of weight you're picking up.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other side of shelf three, we have a welcome pack for when we moved into this house that we've never looked at once.
You've been there forever.
Well, we've been here a year and a few months.
Yeah, well, don't rush. Don't rush.
No, we're not rushing it. Shelf four, we have a selection of files that are in there, all with paperwork, ready to be put away in an actual filing cabinet. These are just sort of, this is the pre-filing, if you see what I mean. So what we do,
Phil, I'm losing the will to live here.
you're the one who wants to look inside this cupboard.
I didn't. Okay, fine. Move on. Carry on. No,
Okay.
no, I'm just horrified because it's so organized. I'm a bit
Yeah.
annoyed, actually.
So this is all
Bit annoyed.
filing.
Mhm.
So it's all sorted out in terms of sort of different companies that have been sent. We then have to go through the pieces of paper individually to see if they're to be kept long term. If they're not, they're shredded, and if they are kept, they're put away into the proper filing system. There we have. And luckily, you can't see the top two shelves, so I don't need to bore you
What
with
the
what.
hell's up there, Hustler? Paul Claridge says, wait for this one, it's a good one. Actually, this is a very good one. I hear Phil's dad is good at raising dumbbells.
Thank you, Paul.
Is that's very good, Paul. That is very, very good. Now,
You
here's
see-
the thing from Shoshana.
Hang on. You say it's very good, but actually, I think it's quite abusive, if I'm honest. I think that was a little bit passive aggressive.
No, it's just bloody rude. That's why we like it. It's a great gag. It's a clever gag, and it's rude. Marvelous. What do you want? Now, Chrissy Holt, here's the interesting stuff. Chrissy Holt hasn't been to the cinema since 1966. Blimey O'Reilly. And Shoshana Yosef has said she has not watched television for 25 years, and I don't miss it. Wow.
I mean,
Wowzer. That's extraordinary. What's Ramsey say?
can we just establish 25 years ago? Let's get this straight. Deirdre Rashid was probably just about to get arrested in Coronation Street,
I thought that was
Having
the
been-
news.
having been set up by, what was his name? John somebody. Pilot chap.
Burko.
No, John Burko, you Burke.
Just guessing. I don't know.
And-
Just guessing. Just John somebody. It could be anybody, couldn't it?
Let's see. Who was, hang on a sec, who else was there? Oh, Paul
This is a
saying,
Coronation. See, this to me, you're going to Coronation Street. This is like me discussing Eddie Van Halen with you.
I don't watch
Coronation Street. I haven't watched since. Literally, have not seen one episode. I don't think since Elsie Tanner. No, before that, Violet Carson was in it.
Oh, that was Ina Sharples.
Yeah, that's the last time I think I ever saw Coronation Street. Just,
She was terrific.
I don't watch any soaps. I've
You know,
never had.
She came out with one of the best lines ever in Corrie. I wonder if I can find it. Hang on.
Okay, while you're doing that, we go to Ramsey's post. You have a little butcher's. The new cinemas like Everyman and Picture House, I don't know Picture House, no Everyman, are great places to see a film. Massive comfy chairs, sofas, good food and drink. I got all that at home. And more importantly, people who respect the film and fellow attendees by turning off their phones and not talking. See, that's what I won't bother with the cinema. I don't want to sit next to a load of people there looking at their texts. What are you? You got the nuclear codes on your phone? It can't be that important. You're there in the cinema. Switch your phone because the light is very distracting. And then throughout the whole soundtrack, which people have spent millions of dollars trying to perfect, and all you can hear is as they chew on their ghastly food, and then have a yak. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I prefer watching stuff on my own. I just get more into it, put my headset on, listen to proper digital sound because of my hearing, and it's perfect. I'm happy with that. Now then, what have we got from Chrissy Holt? I'm going to whisk you two over here. We have a lovely perfume. Oh, Phil, this sounds very attractive. The pig man is spreading pig slurry on our fields. Oh, hell. No, I don't like going to the cinema and don't have a TV. She's too busy sort of dabbing pig slurry behind her ears and going, Mike, do you find that attractive? Do you not? So you don't go to the cinema. I don't watch TV. Serious question, Chrissy Holt, in the middle of nowhere in Spain. What do you just read of an evening, or kind of what do you do? Don't know. No idea. Timmy, coming back to you and the Rod Hull gag, I met him. It was a charity too, and Rod Hull was. I'd never met Rod Hull. He was on my table with the wonderful Nicholas Parsons. Never forgotten it. Nicholas Parsons, me, Rod Hull. I can't remember who else was on there. Oh, some of the gladiators.
No, Enu was there as well.
And well, that's what I'm coming to. All right. Wasn't good. Wasn't good. You can't pretend, if you've got a vent act, as they call in the industry, you can't pretend it's not you and it's the puppet doing what it's doing. It's not. It's you.
Hey, now.
What's that? What are you doing now?
Right, you ready?
Go on, lay it on me, baby.
It's the line. This is Ina Sharples at her absolute finest.
Ledbetter's gone. Who'll do it laying out? Hey, who laid Florrie out anyway?
Oh, Connie Tinsley.
Well, she's not laying a finger on me. You know, sometimes I think I'm just about ready to go off down to that cemetery. But if I had my way, I'd just like to go like my mother did.
Hey, that were a beautiful ending.
Oh, lovely. She just sat up, broke wind, and died.
Isn't that just the most fantastic?
Isn't that great?
To come out of Coronation?
Who was the scriptwriter then? I wonder who was the scriptwriter then?
It probably was Tony Warren in those days, but is that not just the best line ever?
That is classic. Yeah, Chrissy Holt's come back with the answer. I lost it now. Read, listen to music, and walk my dogs. And I've lost it again now because it keeps. Oh, hang on, I've lost it because it keeps jumping up. Read. I've just seen Timmy's remark. You're disgusting. Read, listen to music, and walk my dogs, and feed all the doves. Cook cakes, pies, etc. We ever been sent one? Garnished. Mostly read my ebook. Is it the same ebook since 1966? Have you moved on a little bit? I often ask David, that's his husband, if he wants to use me as a glove puppet, dear. Should have done. Pushing the edges of comedy boundaries. I think, says Ramsey. Oh, could you read this out? Go on. I love that Ina Sharples thing. That was genius. I never heard it. Fabulous. Well done.
Ramsey says that I think it's a great line. I think a lot of people living on their own get a lot from TV. It alleviates the boredom and helps the mental health of people who otherwise would probably feel isolated and disconnected from the community.
Totally so.
Ken Elm says, wait, I come from a business which has had to retract Fleet Street, which was all but killed off at the feet of the internet.
Yep, true.
The journos know all about retraining. When I was with the Mirror, our daily circulation was over 5 million. Today, it stands at less than 400,000.
Wow.
Local papers have closed all over the country. We must all adapt to the new world order, which involves news often being replaced by fake news from the net. And can I just say, I couldn't agree more. And I'm seeing sort of working for one of my employers, okay, let's get this perfectly clear, have their hands in newspaper pies as well. Although I work for the radio side of it, they also absolutely have their hand in newspapers. And they are forever trying to come up with new ways to improve circulation, to increase its...
It's over. It's over.
Well, it's only over until I hope it's only over until a revolution when people actually realize that what you read online, by and large, is a load of bunkum. So this is why.
Let's go back to Ken Elm's point, because and Phil's right. Phil is right in the heart. He's being very modest. They deal with he's with the two biggest newspapers. They're huge, right?
It's not
the Kentish Town Weekly or something.
Can I just say, my employers do, but I'm not involved in the paper side of things myself.
You work for the group that has the biggest newspapers in the country. Right. So, Ken Elm, number one, my mum and dad used to read the Daily Mirror. It always amazed me. I didn't even know when I was a little kid that it was political, that it was a sort of left paper. But my mum and dad always read the Daily Mirror, and I read it religiously. I would always get newspapers. It was the thing. I haven't bought a newspaper now 2 years, probably not. My other half always got the paper, always got the Sunday. Now doesn't, because of the internet, because the news is fresher. I think what will last, but it'll have to reinvent itself a little bit, will be magazines. I think things like The Spectator, etc., will do okay, and specialist magazines, I think, will probably do okay. But newspapers, the trouble is, the moment they've printed it, it's completely out of date. The other point you make about fake news replacing real news is on the show. I cannot stress how important this show that I watched is. I've got no vested interest in it whatsoever. It's called
The Social Dilemma.
The Social Dilemma. And the statistic that all of these brain boxes came up with, which really freaked me out, is that fake news is believed 6 times more than real news. And of course, what all of this has done is none of us, not me, not Phil, really nobody on MRS or WRS, as Women's Radio, or in the media, no one knows what's real and what's made up anymore. That line is not just blurred, it's now it's invisible.
And you know what?
Right up there. Yeah.
Years gone by, we could rely on either photographic or videographic evidence that would prove something one way or another. Well, of course, now computers do wonders, so they can replace these. They actually can replace the truth by actually just adapting videos and photos accordingly. We see it time and time again. I mean, I will use Israel as a classic example because I wholeheartedly believe it's one of the worst affected in terms of fake news, and it has been for so long. That you see photos. The other day, there was this image supposedly of a member of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, kneeling on a Palestinian boy. But what you don't know is actually that took place in Argentina, and it wasn't a member of the IDF at all. So it's absolutely extraordinary how people fall for this nonsense and never question it. They're just, because what they do is they see what they want to see and they hear what they want to hear. And this is a major, major problem that people just don't get a grip on anymore.
Because we've all been forced, and this goes back to a theme that I bang on about. This is why I do believe there'll be a civil war in America. We have been forced to take a side. You're not allowed. And it seems impossible to just say, well, you're right. Let's agree to disagree, which is always, I thought, the adult way of dealing with stuff. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. It may not agree. Doesn't mean we have to loathe each other. No. The new religion is we have to hate each other. If you don't agree with me, I have to hate you. This is nonsense, but that's the way that we are being manipulated. Ed Grossman, Russ, what? Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I think that happened to me the other day. I'm trying to think where it was or what it was. I think it was something that I'd posted for the very first time in a long time. I'd posted something on Facebook that I believe was more political. more than anything, which is rare actually, because I don't normally do that. And yet I just remember that there was this chap who'd commented, I can't remember what the post was now. This is just, that's how irrelevant life has become. You post something, you don't think of the consequences, and you just sort of forget it exists after a while. But this chap who I know as sort of a friend of a friend situation, so why the heck I'm friends on Facebook, who knows? But friend of a friend, and I said, oh, I know exactly what it was actually. I know exactly what it was, is I was banging on about, in my usual way, I'm totally and utterly with Denise Welsh on this one about the whole scaremongering thing. I'm sick to the back teeth of it.
But Denise said she'd come back, by the way. She's been on our show 3 times. And she said she'd be any time she wants to come back.
Terrific.
So we'll get Denise back on the show.
But I mean, I'm so sick to the back teeth of all the scaremongering surrounding the coronavirus. And actually, or COVID-19 to be precise, because coronavirus is a sort of a blanket term, but COVID-19. And I was even having this conversation with a client of mine before, totally and utterly, because this is just how it's penetrated every single part of our life, is that a computer client was speaking to me before about the consequences of COVID or what have you. And she was saying how her business has just been absolutely decimated. She just doesn't, she's gone from having a thriving, and I mean thriving business surrounding health and well-being, yoga studio, that kind of thing, to nothing. Absolutely nothing.
That's the thing.
Unbelievable. Anyway, I posted this thing on Facebook the other day about saying, yet again, all we're hearing is scaremongering. You know, for goodness sake, it's very, very sad that there have been now over 1 million deaths from COVID-19 around the world. I am not taking that away. If I've said it before, I'll say it again. I know people who have lost their lives to it. Okay. So honestly, it's horrific. But that is 1 million out of 7.7 billion people. If you can't do the maths, I've done it for you. That is 0.012%. 0.012%. And yet we are decimating, destroying, absolutely cremating so many livelihoods. And why?
And they're not going to come back. This is what I fear about it. If this is the new normal, I can't bear it. I really can't bear it. I miss my family, like everybody. I miss my friends more than I ever thought I would. I really do. I just miss going into town and having a coffee with, my pals like, Ray Gelato. I was seeing Lloyd and Larry and all the gang, just having a laugh. I miss that. I can't, I'm becoming, and Phil knows, more and more of a hermit. It's nuts. Now, Ken Janur, you're quite right. It's called clickbait. We're talking about fake news. The more outrageous the report, the more clicks you get. Totally so, and it's all worked out with algorithms, etc. Now, Lisa Janes, I think you're conflating 2 things here, if I may be so bold. I'm one of the very few people that live to open a good paper and love going to the library, love the smell of old books. I'm not fussed about reading a newspaper because unless it's a really good article, I'm not that bothered. I love the smell of old books. Lisa, I am with you 100. My happiest place ever. If I want to put myself in my happy place, it's at school, in the old school. It's not a library anymore, but it was the old school library. And I would sit there for hours, so content just reading in this wonderful old building. It was great. Libraries are magnificent. Books are wonderful. Book sales are doing well. Of course they are. People want to get out of themselves. People want to read,
Who'd be so obsessed with books? Hang on.
Yeah, we got it. You're ready for any BBC interview because you can just shove yourself and look intellectual in front of them. My books are in a pile. I don't have bookshelves anymore. I used to have book rooms just laden. I don't have it anymore. It's all gone. Don't bother. Ed Grossman, if no one knows what's real, they can't know the fake news is accepted 6 times more than real news. These guys do. Ed and I, Ed, you and I, we're men of the world. We think we know how many beans make 5, but these were the ex-head of Twitter, head of, it's very, very senior at Facebook. They know. They know. Right, Paul Clarish, do you want to read this one, Mr. Phil?
The Evening Standard is struggling at the moment. The distribution figures are way down. They have resorted to door-to-door deliveries.
Good God.
Blimey, and have withdrawn from some tube and rail stations. They also ditched the distribution contract with Menzies, Wow, and moved to another agency, which took on the distribution staff and promptly cut our wages. They also laid off a lot of staff. Good gracious me. And he goes on to say that so that those of us who stayed are doing more work for less pay. God, that sounds very, very familiar, Paul, believe me. Doing more work for less pay. Most are on minimum wage. When we complain, we're ignored. Do you know what, Paul? I don't even know if it's so much a case of being ignored. I just think, what can they do? Seriously, it's not about so much being ignored. Complain about it by all means, but what do you want them to do? Because clearly they wouldn't do that unless they could, if they could afford otherwise.
You think how life has changed? When I was a little boy, and I'd go to my big thrill, with my dad to the office. Oh, it was exciting. You know, it was a timber wharf. I could run around. There were cranes. It was by a canal. It was all exciting. You know, it was thrilling. There were lorries. Yay! You know, you're a little kid. This is great stuff. And it was weird. You know, I've got to digress for a second. Talk about memories and the way that we can smell something and suddenly we're transformed to another. I had to go to B&Q for a silly little idea that I had for outside. And I went there and I just bought 2 little bits of timber. I did a silly post about it. And I smelt the timber. And I was immediately about 7 years old again, just smelling the timber. It was beautiful. I really loved it. And I kind of felt my dad was there, probably telling me off as per usual. Anywho, I'd go to the with Dad, and it was lovely. And then we'd come home, and on the way home in the car, Dad would buy 3 evening papers.
Do you believe
News, Star and Standard, News, Star and Standard. So you think, I don't know what era this was, a million years ago, right? I was a little kid. You would buy 3 evening papers. Buy them. Now, the Evening Standard's the only one that exists. It's free, and they can't give it away. The world moves on. Why? I can't fully explain, but isn't that extraordinary? In a few decades, you've gone from buying 3 evening papers, plus the stuff you got in the morning, to you couldn't even give away a free newspaper. It's staggering. Staggering.
But the awful truth is, I don't know about you, but I don't know if anyone knows what the answer is, because you can't necessarily.
You can't force people to read. If they don't want to do it, they won't want to do it.
No, but you can sever off their particular source that has meant that those sorts of reliable sources have been compromised quite greatly. But then again, is that suppressing the freedom of choice? And the answer,
you can't switch it off. The genie's out the bottle. I said this from day one. The genie's out the bottle. You can't say, internet, terrible idea. Let's forget it. It's the Wild West out there. It's Dodge City. It's crazy. Ed Grossman, terrible, Paul. Ed's referring back to Paul Claridge. I saw that there are no longer any at Finchley Road Station, and that's the main one. It's bits by bit, things that we liked and we thought were there forever are being eroded. And this does not help mental health, because you really have to think, okay, it's gone. I've got to move on. You know, I don't sit here moaning that the telex machine doesn't, is the thing of the past. I don't sit here worrying that horse and carts have gone. I don't sit worrying that, I don't get faxes. Of course you don't. It's finished. So things changed. But the internet killed printed news. That's the fact. Why bother when you can look on your phone? Your phone. That's the thing. You can be anywhere, anytime, and get information. A horrible example, but bring it right the way back. You can see I've got R.I.P. Eddie Van Halen, right? Because I get the American news feeds. Eddie Van Halen died yesterday. The news feeds came up within 9 minutes, so it was ahead of it was ahead of all the UK news outlets, and I had that within 9 minutes. Think about that. From Santa Monica to South London on my phone, 9 minutes. Tells you everything about the world, doesn't it? In the same way, people are watching, says Ramsey, are watching less scheduled TV. Never watch scheduled TV. Never, ever. More people have abandoned paper-based news. It lacks the immediacy of news delivered through alerts and tweeted seconds after the event. Totally. I remember years and years and years ago when I was doing some corporate writing for British Telecom, and they were explaining to me, and I'm going back 20 years or more, probably more, 25 maybe, that scheduling TV would be a thing of the past. They knew all this. It hasn't come out of nowhere. I thought it was madness. I didn't believe it. I couldn't get my head around it. You're so used to, I've got to sit down at 9 o'clock to watch the Morecambe and Wise show, or I'll miss it. It's history. It's gone.
Or you might set the VCR.
Eventually, then you could set the VCR, which of course always screwed up.
And what was it called? There was something Video Plus. That was it. You could use the Video Plus system, which was a series of numbers that you'd be able to program into a VCR remote that would actually set the exact date and time on your video player. They were good days.
They were complicated. You had to have kids. The only reason to have children was they were the only people who could work a VCR machine. That was the only point of having children. None other. They could work the VCR machine. I couldn't. Now, Chrissy Holt, I'm going to shut this one down. Isn't that what the world order wants? Oh, jeez, I can't keep going through this. China and USA to destroy world economies to fight to be the top dog. They're going to be top dog of a world that doesn't exist. I can't go along with this conspiracy. I can't. There isn't someone sitting in a volcano going, it just isn't. And I'm having this discussion with some of the most intelligent people I know. And I come away thinking, geez, come on. Really? I just can't get into this whole everything's a conspiracy. This just doesn't help. The world order. What is this magical world order? Hidden away, and only Daniel Craig can stop it. I get that. Lisa James, I worry libraries are going to shut down. Well, yeah, because it's part of the, if you don't need acting and you don't need entertainment and you don't need musicals and you can't have films, why bother with books? Why bother? I've got a couple of minutes. I'm reading the new, on my audiobook, the J.K. Rowling book, where she writes as Robert Galbraith in the Strike series. There's been a huge explosion on social media about this. Now, I don't know if I've got to the part where it all kicks off, but I've been listening for hours, right? When I walk the dog, etc. Don't get it. I will report back. I promise I will report back. But that's another example of how social media can be vicious, cruel, and disgraceful. I was stunned. But at the moment, it is simply a detective story. There's nothing else in it yet. I add that caveat. There we are. So, so we were looking today at how music, art, entertainment has got you through. It seems to be that we're all of pretty much the same mind, that it's really, really helped, and we really, really miss it. And I just hope. I would like to put Phil in charge of everything, and let's get the country back. Let's get the country back. Just get the country back to normal, and just.
No, I think we have enough.
Be careful.
But
take care.
No, I suggest as well, sorry, we can't possibly let today finish without mentioning that also it wasn't just Eddie Van Halen who we lost, but Johnny Nash as well.
Johnny Nash, absolutely.
So just thought I'd throw that.
No. You're going to play a little bit? Got a little bit of Johnny Nash?
There's a thought. We started with Van Halen.
We started with Eddie Van Halen and jump. So let's do, what have we got? We got about a minute and a half. Let's play a bit of Johnny Nash, who passed away. At least he was 80. That's something,
No, I know, but still, loss is loss. But...
No, loss is loss. And I look at 80, I think, well, that's tomorrow.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone.
Or I can see Deirdre now Lorena's gone.
I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
Oh, there's a nice thought. Well, hopefully it will be a bright, sunshiny day. But there you
That
go.
was so radio. That was so segue. That was so local BBC. Oh, that's Johnny Nash there with Sunshine Day. Hey, speaking of which, we've got Doreen with the weather coming up at 1. Christ. Oh,
Okay. At least I redeemed myself, and it's not in the least bit local radio to say I can see Deirdre now. Lorraine has gone.
I love that. That cracked me up.
Thank
Right.
you, everybody. Thank you for your comments. It was very good to get your thoughts today, as ever. Back on Friday for the 3-hour extravaganza. So hopefully you will join Russ Kane, and me, Phil Dave. Then have a great day. See you Friday at 11 o'clock. Bye bye.